Good morning to one and all present here. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to the 29th talk of the TransPedia Research Talk Series organized by KSCST National Transportation Planning and Research Center. This talk series is yet another unique venture of NATPAC designed to explore diverse topics from cutting-edge technologies to sustainable solutions. Here, we will be featuring eminent young researchers to share their valuable insights for kindling the spirit of future research and development in transportation. Today, we have with us Dr. Tushar Choudhary, Assistant Professor, Center of Transportation Systems, Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee, for sharing his valuable insights on the topic, Dissecting Crash Causality, the interplay between driver behavior and road geometry for highway safety. Now, I request Sri Arun Chandran, Senior Scientist, to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you, Rashmi. KSCSTE-NATPAC has launched a technical discussion series called TransPedia Talk Series, which is envisioned to promote research for shared benefit by disseminating knowledge on diverse topics from cutting-edge technologies to sustainable solutions. Desirably, this also brings out a platform for young researchers across the globe to connect and interact to better shape the future of research and development in transportation. The inaugural talk of the series was conducted on 24th August 2023 in an online platform where more than 200 participants from eminent institutions department attended. The inaugural address was given by Professor Tom V. Matthew, Chairman of the Research Council KSCSTE-NATPAC and Professor at IIT Bombay. Today, we have the 29th talk in the series, which will be delivered by Dr. Tushar Choudhary, Assistant Professor, Center for Transportation System, Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee. It is with great pleasure to extend a warm welcome to our distinguished speaker who has graciously accepted our invitation to share his insight and knowledge on the topic Dissecting Crash Casualty, the interplay between driver behavior and road geometry for highway safety. After the presentation, we will have a question and answer session where you can pose your question and engage in a meaningful dialogue with Dr. Choudhary. Feel free to participate actively and thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your welcome note. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Vasudevan, Junior Scientist, to introduce the speaker to the audience.
Good morning, everyone. Today, we have Dr. Tushar Choudhary, Assistant Professor from Center for Transportation Systems, Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee. He earned his MTech plus PhD dual degree from Transportation Systems Engineering, Department of Civil Engineering, IIT Bombay in the year 2021. Further, he worked as project research assistant at IIT Bombay for almost 1 year, and later he joined as postdoctoral research fellow at Trinity College, Dublin, Ireland, till March 2025. His research interests include shared mobility, transportation policy, risk assessment and modeling, driver behavior analysis, highway geometric design and safety, and intelligent transportation systems. He has around 12 international reputed journal publications and presented various technical papers at national and international conference forums, including Transportation Research Board Annual Meeting, World Conference on Transport Research, Eastern Asia Society for Transportation Studies. With this note, I welcome Dr. Tushar Choudhary to this talk series. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the introduction. Now, I invite our distinguished speaker to deliver the talk. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Arun Chandran. Thank you, Dr. Vasudevan, for the kind introduction and the opportunity to deliver this talk. Let me share my screen to start with. I hope my screen is visible now.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you everyone for your time to listen to my lecture or the talks in the talk series on dissecting crash casualty, the interplay between driver behavior and road geometry for highway safety. Mostly in the today's talk, I'll be focused on different driver factors along with the road geometry factors for safety along the horizontal curves of two-lane rural highways. That is what I think I'll be focusing on in today's lecture.
I think such kind of highways are numerously available in Kerala, in the state of Kerala, and of course, lot of different states available. But considering the mountainous and different terrain conditions in Kerala, I thought like we can have one lecture in this area. So let me start. Uh, Already, thank you for the brief biodata, Dr. Vasudevan. I just would like to show the brief of my biodata. Currently, I am working as assistant professor at a Center for Transportation Research at CTrans. It's one of the center opened in 2003. It's a 23 years old center, and recently they have started taking core faculties. I am one of the core faculty and doing despite the background I am having in overall civil engineering. I'll be working in the multidisciplinary sector, majorly along with the safety, transportation safety. I'll be also working in sustainable transport, shared mobility service, and the decarbonization in the transportation sectors in India, especially. And my expertise, based on my expertise today, I will be more focusing on two objectives of this presentation based on the data collected using driving simulator. I will also highlight some of the NDA study, the importance of NDA study in India, particularly wherever there are lots of horizontal curves along in a state. So there the study will be useful. Let me introduce the topic. If I have, Dr. Vasudevan, if I have completed half an hour time, please remind me once. Thank you. So,
Yeah, okay.
as you know, there are lots of accidents, crashes happening in India. Morth every year gives report on that. It seems that based on last 3-4 years report, the crash trend has been stabilized, but it's not decreasing yet. That decrease is not, we are not able to identify how to reduce that. So uh, that is what the topic is focusing on. So majorly the accident happens due to the three factors in the environment. One is driver, vehicle, and infrastructure. Based on the Morth report and NCRB report, we can see that almost on 57% of crashes are due to human error, which is most of the time is inevitable. And 3% of the crashes occur due to vehicle, and 3% of crashes due to the unsafe infrastructure. So there are lots of issue with the infrastructure. I'll be focusing on horizontal curves today. And 37% of this accident occur due to the combination of these elements. And majority of the time for a particular um, study scenario, we don't know whether driver is actually behaving erroneously or there is infrastructural issues. There could be some vehicle issues. I will not be focusing on that. There are separate trend of research available for that. I'll be focusing on interplay between driver and infrastructure. Who are the most responsible for crashes? So you might know the answer. I will try to provide using evidence-based analysis. And while explaining all these safety related topic today, I will try to provide explain it based on the risk framework. So whenever you are doing a risk framework, we need to know what is the hazard, the threat, the vulnerable population. Who are the most vulnerable in India? Mostly pedestrian, two-wheeler riders are most vulnerable, but many of the times we can say fast moving vehicle can be a vulnerable in case of if the driver is inexperienced and moving at a very high speed, so that becomes a vulnerable driver. Exposure, how much exposure to the hazard is actually uh, fa- that can be estimated based on the several factors that you are considering for a particular risk assessment. All these three, hazard, vulnerability, and exposure, increases the risk. However, the response actually reduces the amount of risk for any scenario. So for any given scenario, if we have a good crash response team available, that will again reduce the risk of fatality if the crash already happened. There are other responses, like before even the crash even happened, if there are good advanced driving assistance system which will respond to drivers and reduce the exposure for a particular hazard, the overall risk can be reduced. Let tell you some of the historical crash records, well-known crash records uh, available in our Indian condition. So first is the historical crash happened in Maharashtra in Palghar district near Mumbai, and this is the overall highway. It was the highway is approaching towards one bridge where actually the crash of Mr. Cyrus Mistry, the well-known business person, happened. In during that crash, you can see that the initial speed of the car was 100 km/h, but speed during hitting the divider was 89 km/h. Here, of course, the exposure was more, along with the situation was also hazardous. If you already worked on this field investigation, you may know better. Whatever I understood based on different maps and different headlines, I'm actually putting down it here. One of the key point I have observed here is many of the bridges in India has one or the other curve available before that. So this is majorly available. This is just to optimize the cost of construction. The curves are available, but many of the times you can see here it's a milder curve, but many of the times for two-lane highways it's a sharper curve. So those are some of the black spots often obtained from the crash records. And here one of the improper behavior is speeding, despite the fact that 40 kmph was the speed limit. So overspeeding is again cited every time as a crash prone, increases the risk of crash. And one of the vulnerability point here is the Mr. Cyrus Mistry was at the backside and not wearing a seat belt. That became a vulnerable situation. He was exposed to almost 89 kmph speed, stopping speed, which has resulted into a unfortunate incident. So that is one incident along the curve I would like to highlight here based on the risk framework. There is another curve which is not a two-lane highway, but it's a one-way, three-lane highway. Not highway, it's a urban road. This was opened in 2019 in Hyderabad. Within 3 weeks of time, one runoff incident happened. So if I try to play it here, let me play the video. Yes. So you can see that the vehicle was not supposed to travel at around 100 kmph, and the runoff actually happened because the road is empty and the driver felt okay, it is safe to travel at that speed. That became one of the critical situation. 6 people were injured during this uh, event and one fatality occurred. This After this, lot of post crash measures were obtained, which is always the method we adopt whenever crash happens. We do post crash measure, but why don't we actually identify such situation beforehand? When we find out that there is a straight road ahead, more than 200-300 meters straight road ahead, there is a good chance that the driver will actually increase the speed of the vehicle but may not perceive the curve ahead. Okay, of course that's one of the part, like there is no discipline, but at least we should have some speed calming measures in place whenever such sharp turns are there. After the crash was the flyover was closed for about a month after this crash, and then the post-crash measures were taken. One more thing I would like to identify, like majority of the crashes uh, historical crash record, those are obtained from police records. And the risk events happening in India are actually more than 10 times the actual crash records. So one of the risk event I would like to show from naturalistic driving data here, which I was one of the passenger in this driver in this data collection when we were doing data collection in Mumbai for my PhD work. So a near crash event actually happened, which is not recorded in police record, but this was obtained from the actual observed data. So you can see that for a particular horizontal curve, it is almost the start or end of the mountainous terrain. The driver was driving at more speed and could not perceive the sharp cut ahead. All these risk events can actually observed from the performance of the vehicle, the speed, the lateral acceleration, the brake force, pedal usage. All these can be obtained from the data, the naturalistic driving data we can collect in a vehicle. Nowadays, lots of low cost sensors are available. This was collected using VBox. Um, you can see that such risky events you can observe for particular driver or at particular location, which will tell us which will tell us that this could be a probable black spot or hotspot in future. um, that can be actually done using this naturalistic driving study. More and more such studies are required in Indian case. So what can we do in particular cases, like to reduce the risk and to reduce the overall risk of crashes? We can identify major challenges in the safety. Here we identified curve safety as major research focus. Conduct naturalistic driving study experiments in the field, as well as if you can do in simulators, if it is available, you can do that in that. Get data, analyze the data, identify risky elements, get evidence-based solution, and implement those solution in the field. That we can do. So in the today's topic, I was focusing on horizontal curves. I hope the basics of how to design a horizontal curve, you are all aware of these basics. I'll be focusing on very basic feature that I have explored to to identify the runoff risk without or with or without using the accident data here. So I am considering this vehicle moving as a safe event, and if it is running away from the road along the curve as runoff event for the whole study. To focus more on safety evaluation studies or horizontal curves, so there are different safety evaluation study. One is crash database studies. So we already have a lot of crash data available from police record. If it is GPS located or GIS located crash records available, then it will be good for understanding different infrastructural issues. There are other surrogate safety measures which actually consider the driver performance based on vehicle control and vehicle dynamics. Vehicle control includes using how driver is actually controlling steering and accelerator, brake, clutch, gearbox, and other controls in the vehicle to control the vehicle. Vehicle dynamics includes all the longitudinal and lateral dynamics, speed, longitudinal, lateral acceleration, uh, pitch, rolling rate, pitch rate, yaw rate, all these considered as vehicle dynamic situations. There are other vehicle stability surrogate safety measures which considers friction as one of the road tire friction as one of the key parameter. Some of the studies include driver workload. If the driver workload is more, then there are good chances the crashes will happen at a particular study area or region. There are geometrical indexes available, combination of 2-3 alignment parameters, which also provides safety, which are also part of the safety evaluation study. For majority of these evaluation safety measures are individually compared with the crash-based studies. They are individually compared, but majority of the time, in absence of a crash data, what we can do. So in that case, we can actually combine 2 or 3 surrogate measures which are collected differently, and those we can use to quantify the risk. So in today's study, I have quantified the risk based on vehicle dynamics as well as the road tire friction collected using the simulator dataset. For this study, a scenario was designed at horizontal curves, a scenario of different horizontal curves in the AutoCAD Civil 3D software. This design was appropriately converted into a 3ds Max design, which provides virtual and which gives virtual environment to actually input a driving simulator. Multiple driver data, more than 68 drivers were asked to drive on this 28-kilometer rural highway to and fro to collect the data, and this kind of different radius preceding tangent length for the curve, gradient, super elevation were provided for this simulator, which were also validated from the observations of the drivers, whether they can actually feel or see or whether they can see whether there is an upward gradient or downward or horizontal curves are available. So those kind of situations were created. So overall, this highway was having 52 curves, mid-block section. Most of them were mid-block section, not the in intersections, and wherever not the whole whole 28-kilometer road was a study section. So wherever there was straight section, wherever the driver, we were not studying the drivers at that time. Some traffic were provided so that driver will feel realistic environment while driving in the simulator. The passenger car was used as a vehicle type for the study. The surrounding condition were low traffic environment, to well free flow condition, and the study was conducted in dry weather conditions. So total about 68 drivers successfully completed the experiment. Of course, there were some scenarios where simulator sickness incidents were happening for some drivers, so we had to exclude those drivers. Here are some of the curve characteristics like radius, gradient, preceding tangent length, turn type, whether it's a left or right turn. So different different ranges which are available, which are generally used for design purpose using IRC 73, and those were considered here. Along with these, we also collected some questionnaire data from the driver, some socio-demographic data, age, driving experience, their other like gender, income status, income level. All this I have not shown it here, but those were also collected for the examination purpose, for the estimation. There are the presentation is divided into two ways. First is speed-based analysis, which can be readily adopted in the field. So that is first analysis, and second is some analytical relationship I would like to show based on the research work using lateral acceleration index. So based on the speed-based research, majority of the work has been done to collect the data at speed data and the speed differential data at along the horizontal curve. So one data is speed at a particular section, and the other another data point as the for the same vehicle speed, what is the speed at the center of the curve. So the speed difference between these two were actually collected. The speed difference was estimated, and this speed difference was compared with the crash records, and it was found that that if the speed difference is more than 10 kmph, then there is a fair chance that crash will happen, and if the speed difference is more than 20 kmph, then there is a good chance that the crashes will happen, and those were considered as poorly consistent curves. With more advancement in data collection technologies, actually researchers have come up with 85 MSR, like maximum speed reduction, which considers for a given curve maximum what was the maximum speed observed before entering the curve, and what was the minimum speed observed within the curve. That will actually provide a better version of speed difference. It was actually found out that the 85 MSR was over representing compared to the actual speed data collection happened along traditionally collected for different curves. When such speed data was collected, some regression models, multiple linear regression models, basic models were developed, and it was found that the radius of the curve and the approaching tangent, the preceding tangent rates, were the one of the um, significant parameters for speed-based study. Some safety level categorization was done based on one of the study available in the literature, and it was found that good, fair, and poor, poorly consistent safety consistent were observed. Here it was observed that if the 85 MSR is between 20 kmph to 35 kmph, the speed difference, if it is more, then it was fairly consistent, and wherever it was more than it should be 35 kmph. Wherever it was more than 35 kmph, it was considered as a poorly consistent road. And based on this ideology, what how can a road designer use in the field? So of course, for design purpose, they need some nomograms, some standards. So here we have tried to obtain one nomogram based on the actual design we do, and what should be the curve radius and preceding tangent length for a particular curve design, so that there are the safety level categorization can be made better, from poor to fair or fair to good. That can be done. So here I'll explain this nomogram. In this nomogram, you can see if we choose a design speed of 70 kmph for a particular rural highway, for that design speed, from the basic IRC guideline, whatever super elevation we calculate, and whatever if we assume that super elevation we provide at 7%, then what should be the minimum curve radius? So the minimum curve radius should be around 175 um, um, 175 meters. That should be minimum curve radius. But the design doesn't talk about, IRC 73 doesn't talk about what should be the preceding tangent length for that curve. So here additionally, for the same 175 meter, if you would like to have a good consistent road, the maximum preceding tangent length should be 185 meters. So around 200 meters should be the preceding tangent length. If your tangent length is more, like the approach tangent is more than the curve more in this case, then you may, if the approach tangent is 300 meters, then you may need to choose 200-meter radius, not 200, I think more than that. Somewhere here you need 300 or 400-meter curve radius to have a good safety categorization index in our study. So this is how a designer can actually reduce the risk of getting into the crashes for along a horizontal curve design. So this is one contribution of this study, which is published in Transportation in Developing Economics journal. This is simply based on the speed studies collected. Another analytical relationship I would like to bring it here is, the key question here is, what is the basic factor that cause runoff risk? Which are the vulnerable drivers causing runoff risk? These are the two basic questions which we want to answer. So as per IRC 73, we know the formula E plus F equal to V square by GR. I'm just slightly adjusting the formula. At equilibrium speed along the curve, the design lateral acceleration is actually equal to the actual lateral acceleration at time t. So the right side here, V square by R, is nothing but the lateral acceleration, but it's the actual lateral acceleration at time t, versus whatever the design lateral acceleration we provide as a designer. So at equilibrium speed, both are safe. But what if the two are not equal, design lateral and actual lateral acceleration? In that case, if the design lateral acceleration is more than the actual lateral acceleration, then those are safe events. Comparatively, if it is less, then we can consider as risky events. So if we want to identify the risk, we want to develop how many number of times the risk happened here, like the design lateral acceleration was less compared to the actual lateral acceleration, how many times it happened, what is the index, can we derive a good index based on that. So in the study published in Journal of Safety Research, one physics driven index was provided, where if this is the lateral acceleration profile along the horizontal curve, this is tangent section, this is horizontal curve, and this is again after curve tangent section. We can, based on the threshold lateral acceleration, the threshold is obtained based on the given data, based on the given super elevation. If we have 7% super elevation, and F, if we consider static F 0.15 for side friction, then we can actually obtain the threshold lateral acceleration index. How many number of times, uh, how much the driver is exposed to more than to actual lateral acceleration more than the actual threshold. So based on the available trend, based on the available data, all the overall area was divided into 5-meter equal intervals, and based on that, an equivalent index for a per one driver at one curve, so those were obtained for the whole study section. So such AEQ values we have obtained. We have developed a methodology to actually consider the AEQ. Whatever the AEQ values were obtained, those will represent some risk, because those are already, if the AEQ is 0, then there is no risk, but if the AEQ is more than 0, then we need to define those or cluster those into different events. Accordingly, we have done the clustering analysis using Ward's hierarchical clustering. We have, while collecting the data in the simulator, we have observed like there were no runoff event, like you can say it like safe event around 3209, but some drivers could not control the vehicles, and 16 events we have observed as crash events in the simulator. So whatever the runoff events we had, no runoff events we had, we have clustered them into 3 different categories, and it was all these 3 groups where AQ values were compared with the actual accident event. So what was the runoff? What was the AEQ value during the runoff event? That also was taken into consideration. When we, after observing all these groups, we have identified that RG3 group can be considered as a high risk group, because it is showing the similar runoff risk quantification for the real accident event we have observed. So similarly, in this way, we have observed the 3 different groups. So this was RG3 group was noted as high risk group, RG2 as moderate risk, and RG1 as low risk group. You can see the description that 58.1% of time there was low risk along the curve, 31% of time at moderate risk, and almost 10% of time high risk events happened during the event. So why not we compare these high risk events versus low and moderate risk event? If we can convert the variables into nominal variable, we can actually go with the decision tree to understand what we can do it here. So this is one of the interesting results we have observed. The main question that we want to answer, whether it's a driver factor or curve geometric feature, which are risky in this sense. So from the risk cluster, we have observed around 10% as high risk event, and low and moderate risk events as around 90%. And we have observed here that the first hierarchy provided by decision tree was the radius of the curve. So curve, and in fact, while designing the curve also, we use radius as the most important parameter. So here we can say that the curve geometric parameter becomes the first hierarchy. Interestingly, this further hierarchy was actually for milder curves. The further hierarchy was again different geometric parameters, which are gradient, turn type, preceding tangent length, and all. But for the sharp curves, the other geometrical parameters were not in priority. The priority was how much the driver is experienced. So that becomes one of the interesting fact for sharp curves, which are some of the hazardous curves. How the driver is actually managing the situation is become based on broadly on the age and the experience of the drivers. Here you can see that for sharp curves, in the first hierarchy, the sharp curves having more than 3 times high risk events compared to um, milder, again to the milder curves. You can see the number of high risk event here. It was 17.7% compared to 4.6 and 0.5% here. If you see for sharp curve, if you only focus on high risk events, number of high risk events, you can see that interestingly, for the sharp curve, the mid experienced driver, mid experience in the sense those who are having driving experience of 1000 to 3000 kilometers per year in the last 2 or 3 years of timeline. So those were the mid experienced drivers, and high experience is more than 3000 kilometers for annually, and low experience were less than 1000 kilometers overall. You can see the for mid experienced driver, the number of high risk event were more. It again depict that more with middle level of experience, the drivers are actually overconfident compared to high experience and low experience. The second most observation was is the high risk event. The second priority was for low experience driver, and then with the increase in experience, the actually number of high risk events were lesser. If we again focus on sharp curves, low experience driver, um, they have the mid-age driver will act mid-age driver. Mid-age means more than 25 years of age, and young drivers is less than 25 years of age. So mid-age drivers were having more risk compared to the young drivers. That is also what observed interestingly for sharp curves and with having low experience driver. So here we can say that the young drivers with low experience are more cautious, or they can handle the things better compared to the mid-age drivers. In case of high experience drivers, the young drivers were taking more risk compared to the mid-age driver. So the mid-age driver understood the risk and were not driving it at a risky situation, at risky zone. But young driver were found to be more overconfident because of the high experience and considering the sharper curves. So this is one of the interesting event for sharp curves we have obtained. Secondly, for downward gradient, the mid experienced driver at sharp curve and downward gradient, the number of risky events was more than 2 times compared to the upward gradient. Upward gradients means up slope. So if there is a curve along with the slope, downward or upward gradient slope, so downward will have more risk compared to the upward, which you can also observe in your daily driving conditions. When we talk about the milder curves, for curves within range of 100 to 200 meters, the high risk event was more for downward gradient compared to flat and upward gradient for 100 to 200 meter curve radius. And for 200 to 300 curve radius, right turn we are having some more marginally high risk event compared to the left turns. The number of events were quite lesser to identify what is the reason behind this. And if you can see from the for middle range radius curve for downward gradient, the preceding tangent length of 200 to 300 meters were found having more risk compared to the preceding tangent length of 300 meters. This seems contradictory, but actually this is true. Majority of the times what happens, driver, when they just have only 200 to 300 meter length, they are actually increasing their speed and they feel that they are safe. But actually when the preceding tangent length is more than 300 meters, the drivers may consider that the may look into reducing the speed rather than increasing the speed. So that is one of the possible reason we have identified it here. So to conclude this study, whether driver or curve responsible for the crashes, we have observed that the curve is radius is more responsible for crashes compared to other driver characteristics, because the overall study was done only on horizontal curve. So that may be one possible reason that radius was coming as a primary component. For less than 100-meter curves, drivers age and skill set become more important. For milder curves, other geometric parameters become more important. In short, the highway designer can use the hierarchy from radius, gradient, and then tangent length to reduce the runoff risk severity. So while designing a horizontal curve, if they look into the hierarchy and identify different risky zones, risky curves, they can reduce the risk by increasing the curve radius or decreasing the gradient in the design itself, so that the future possibility of black spot can be avoided. In India, the driver training organization would target the risky driving behavior using their age and driving experience and train them especially for sharper curves. So since the study was focused on sharper curves, yes, such kind of studies or training program can be conducted in India. In US, there is already a graduated driver licensing program running. Such kind of for especially for the young drivers, for 1 or 2 years they monitor the drivers for training them properly. So such kind of system, if we can, again, we cannot use it directly, we need to develop our own. So that can be again thought of in Indian case. Overall, the study have successfully correlated vehicle dynamics with its stability for runoff is assessment. So stability based on friction based on the skid resistance, and the lateral acceleration, threshold lateral acceleration that was discussed in this study. So these are the overall summaries. Thank you. I am currently working in this area and would like to work more to, especially to identify who are the aggressive versus safe drivers based on some low cost sensor that I am currently working on. Along with highway safety, geometric design safety, I'm also working in transport emission modeling, provision of shared mobility in the Indian cities. So if anybody is interested to work in this area, please let me know. I'm happy to collaborate with NATPAC team on this. Here are my details to contact and my email ID, and can quickly scan the QR code to go for the web page. Thank you so much. I'm happy to answer any questions.
That was a nice presentation. Thank you, sir. Now, the forum is open for discussion.
Sure.
Yes,
I'm not,
uh,
yeah.
this is Vasudevan from NATPAC. Dr. Tushar, it's a nice presentation. I have
Thank you.
questions. First one is regarding the experiment in driving simulator, the development of the scenarios. During, for that scenario, you might have taken more than 10 kilometers, something like that road stretch you have shown. which was developed in AutoCAD 3D engine, right? So how
Yes.
the vertical gradient was considered, and how that such data was collected during the survey? Did it done from the field directly, or remotely extracted
Uh,
using?
Yes, the thing is, initially we thought to represent one single scenario from the field. So we have already collected some data in the field, and we thought like the same scenario, if we can recreate in the simulator, then we can have we can validate the field results and as well as do the study. But what happened is, the driving simulators are known for uh, develop developing comparative studies better, and we can recreate some more scenarios instead of just directly taking one scenario from the field. So here, during the research work, we what we did is we actually created one hypothetical scenario uh, based on the field geometric details or different curves. More than 72 curves were there in the field. So those geometric details, we took its mean, standard deviation, and we developed a scenario with different design speed, with different curve radius. So for the 75-meter, let us consider, like, if we choose one curve radius, 75-meter as curve radius, then we had four different gradients, four different curves of 75 meters, and with different gradients. So 0%, 2%, 3, 4%, 6%, something like that. So those were the four different curves we designed. When the driver is moving from A to B in one direction, you can collect some data for four curves. And if the driver is again coming back on the same route, then you will get additional three more scenarios where the 2-degree gradient becomes -2 degree while coming back. So that kind of scenario we have collected data for. So that is how we consider gradient.
Okay.
Total 52 curves were there. So the actual in AutoCAD, you can see there are the 26 study curves. But since the driver drove from took a round trip, we are actually showing it as 52 curves.
Yeah, got it. Thank you. And second question is regarding that results which we have shown in the slide number 19,
Okay.
that hierarchy. Here, how that, I mean, thresholds of sharp curves and medium curves are defined, whether it is 50 to 100 meter, then it is termed as sharp curve, and 100 to 150 meter it will be mild curve, like that. So how that threshold was
Uh,
decided?
Yes, that's a correct point. Majority of the times, if the radius of curve is less than 300 meters, are considered as sharp curves in some of the contextual literature I had focused on. So, actually gone through several literatures and tried to identify where, at which locations the crash records were more, what was the curve radius they have observed, like less than 100 meter, okay, more crashes were, or more speed reduction was uh, happening at that time. So from literature we have explored, like, okay, these three groups can be made. We also did some decision tree, no, not decision tree, some clustering analysis based on the overall curve radius we had. And we closely observed that, okay, 50 to 80 meter as one cluster we can use, then 80 to along almost 190 meters were as a uh, different curve group that we have observed from the clustering analysis. But we thought of giving one standard here so that it is easy to articulate and easy to understand. So we have chosen 50 to 100 meter as sharp curves, and then 100 to 200, and then 200 to 300. Again, we have cross-checked with our study location what were the curves radius we have observed from our field. We have observed more than 80% of the curve radius were less than 300. So we have focused more on less than 300 meters.
Yeah, okay. So, I understood, correct. Okay, then that decision tree results itself, first the radius, the priority should be given to the curve radius first, and then it should be the gradient, then we have to look into the tangent length. Is that the overall outcome of that result?
Yes, curve radius should be looked at first. If you can modify the curve radius, if you provide more milder curve radius, there is a significant reduction in the risk observed. One thing I can show it here, which may not be related to lateral acceleration, but just a second. Yeah. So we also did some sensitivity analysis in this speed study. So we have observed that from the mean radius, so whatever data we had one mean radius for around 150 meter as a mean radius of all the curve radius. If we reduce the curve radius, there is a drastic increase in the speed reduction. So the speed differential was comparatively increasing more. If the speed differential is more, there are good chances that the driver may not be able to reduce the required amount of speed, and there are more number of crashes. And it happens when the curve radius is more, curve radius is less. But as the curve radius is increasing, the effect of curve radius is reducing actually. So that we have observed using this sensitivity analysis. In case of preceding tangent length, of course, it was having a constant effect. So reducing the tangent length was reducing the overall uh, speed differential. But as you have increased the tangent length with 10%, 20% more, there are good chances that the 85 MSR will have more in number. So the speed reduction is more. So that again affects the, if the driver is not able to reduce the speed that much, then it becomes a risky situation.
Okay, yeah, great. Understood. Okay, and the last question is it's related to the drivers who were using that simulator. What was the age range from? Uh, who all
Yes,
were the category of
young drivers.
drivers? Mostly of them are
Sorry.
drivers. No, who all are the drivers that you have taken for
Aha.
simulator?
So this study was done in IIT Bombay. We have taken participants, including some staff, regular staff, students. Most of the students were categorized as young drivers, then staff as mid-age drivers, and we had around 15 professional drivers who drive on regular basis as a taxi driving from outside institute. So these were the practically participants for this data collection. Of course, the we have not chosen this participant like only these cases. The study was open to all, but the overall categories we have observed like this.
Okay. Any aged candidates were appeared for driving?
Yes, yes. More than 55 age. I think I have the, yeah. So
Yeah. Okay.
okay, the maximum was
Maximum is
57.
57.
Sorry,
Mhm.
maximum was 57, which was chosen for actually data collection. But there two three more drivers were there who participated but couldn't complete the study because one of them were having health issues like some heart disease or diabetic, so they couldn't comprehend the simulated situation in front of them. So we had to stop the experiment right away to avoid any other medical issues. So for that reason we couldn't consider here for analysis, but yes, majority of the time were less than 57.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's all. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay, any other question? I'm not able to hear anybody. I think if someone is talking, he or she is muted.
Yeah, I think somebody has raised some question the surface.
Okay,
We'll
okay.
wait for a few seconds also.
Okay.
Yeah, I think no other questions are raised from participants. Let me, I think we can continue.
Okay, now I request Srimati Adra S. Krishna, Junior Scientist, to propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you. Good morning to everyone. It is my privilege to propose a vote of thanks for today's technical talk on dissecting crash causality, the interplay between driver behavior and road geometry for highway safety. On behalf of NATPAC, I extend our heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Tushar Choudhary for delivering such an insightful and thought-provoking session. The presentation addressed one of the most critical aspects of highway safety, the identification of primary contributors to road crashes by exploring the interplay between driver behavior and road geometry. The talk also discussed the analytical approaches that integrate vehicle dynamics and stability measures and simulation-based evaluations to assess the runoff road risk and understand how horizontal curve geometry and driver behavior interact to influence the vehicle stability and safety. We sincerely appreciate the time and effort that went into preparing this enriching presentation. The interactive discussions have further enhanced our learning experience and provided us with valuable insights. A special thanks to our director, Professor Dr. KP Sudhir, for his continued guidance and encouragement in organizing such knowledge sharing sessions. I would also like to thank all the participants for their active engagement and keen interest throughout the session. Finally, heartfelt thanks to the entire NATPAC team for their dedicated efforts behind the scenes in organizing this session seamlessly. Once again, thank you all for making this session a meaningful and successful one. We look forward to many more such enlightening discussions in future. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.